to bring you right up to speed with all of the developing transfers. After weeks of letdowns and turmoil, are Newcastle on the verge of getting a deal over the line? Now, loads to talk about with Asmir, including the future of Gianluigi Donnarumma. Why are PSG letting him go? And is he destined for the Premier League? And as Liverpool close in on landing a centre-back, what does that mean for Mark Guehi? Straight away, now a Leicester player. How did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, it came about in the summer where Leicester were looking for some goalkeeper cover, maybe expecting Matt Hermansen to leave the club and move on to a different club. And yeah, I was one of the options. And for me, it was a no-brainer. I mean, it's a fantastic football club, huge football club, massive fan base. Yeah, and to be part of that for me was an easy decision.
I know you've been in a lot of dressing rooms over your career, and you know what it takes to get over the line and win trophies. I know you've only been there a short period of time, but does it feel like there's a dressing room there with quality, with young exuberance, with experience, and the type of dressing room that could achieve something special and obviously get back to the Premier League?
Well, that's the goal. It's the number one goal. We have to get promoted by any means necessary. Obviously, direct promotion would be the first goal, and you know, I definitely think we have the quality to do so. I think if you look at the players, the squad that we have, the quality is certainly there. The togetherness seems there. It's a good bunch of lads. I've only been there a couple of weeks, so I've seen that. And I think, as well, in terms of young talent, like Jeremy Munga, there's some really talented young players, Casey McAteer. So we want to give them the platform as well to succeed and contribute to the team as well.
Of course, the Championship season underway. Premier League season starts tomorrow, but we've still got until September 1st for the deadline. As a player, what is that period like?
It can be a very difficult period. Obviously, there's a lot of noise. I think these days there's more noise than ever before. People, agents, social media, so many things going on behind the scenes that obviously affect players. The bottom line is you still have a job to do. So obviously, if you're paid and contracted by the football club, you still have to train every day, be professional. But it's not easy with things maybe going on in the background where there's a move potentially happening for you and your future is uncertain. There's always the risk of injury, so you have to be aware of that. So it's about being professional, but also managing everything that comes with that. So it's never an easy one. I've been there before where it's gone to deadline day, right to the end, and you still have to try and carry on to do your job to the best of your ability, but knowing things could change very quickly.
Tell us about the deadline day moves. You touched upon it there, then. They get right to the wire, don't they?
They really do. I mean, 2010, Portsmouth to Stoke. I think the deadline was 5 o'clock, and I didn't sign until 4:30 that day. So it was a very, very stressful few days leading up to it. You don't quite know where you're going to be, what you need to do, where you need to go. So it's a massive relief once that gets done. And the second one was with Bournemouth when I went to Karabakh on loan in 2019. So that happened in the last couple of days. The window with a loan was agreed, thankfully, and I was able to move on. But very stressful times, and it's not something you want to do. So I'm really glad that I was able to do my business, get my move done relatively early this year.
Brilliant. Listen, there's so much from Asmir to come throughout the hour. Now, we want you to get your questions in for Asmir. We're going to make him work tonight. Get in touch on X. We're at Sky Sports News. Use the hashtag #AskAsmir. Now, anything you want to ask Asmir, get in touch, and we'll do that between now and 8 when we come off air. So, Asmir, good luck. Right, let's get you right up to speed with our top transfer story this evening. Jacob Ramsey to Newcastle, gathering pace. Keith Downey has the latest.
Newcastle acted quickly this week after being alerted to the availability of Jacob Ramsey because Aston Villa need to sell a player for their own financial reasons. So Newcastle made contact with Aston Villa on Monday. Some talks have taken place behind the scenes since then. There was a little bit of uncertainty last night as to whether a deal would be struck, but finally it was struck this afternoon after Newcastle and Aston Villa agreed a fee of £39 million plus a potential £4 million in add-on for the midfielder. Of course, that represents pure profit to Aston Villa, and for Newcastle, it's a long-term replacement for Sean Longstaff, who, of course, was sold to Leeds United just last month. Of course, there's been so much speculation surrounding Alexander Isak. That situation has not been healthy, but quietly in the background, Newcastle have got to work in bringing in players, and the last week has been positive for them. Malik Chow arriving from AC Milan for £35 million. That one was announced a couple of days ago, and now Jacob Ramsey, who's currently on his way to the northeast and will begin his Newcastle medical this evening.
What do you think, Asmir? Ramsey to Newcastle, good move for them?
I think it's a good move, absolutely. I think they needed to beef up that midfield area of their squad going into a big season, Champions League football, 4 competitions. So for them, I think it was an important one to do. I think Eddie Howe, as we all know, really loves talented youngsters, young players with a lot of talent he can develop and really mould into top players. So I think it fits them and ticks a lot of boxes.
Mark, a lot of people have rubbished Newcastle's window. Is it as bad as has been made out?
I don't think so. We know that Newcastle United have a number of targets that they've missed out on. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's been a bad window. I think the key in this situation is that they move on to other targets that they feel will still make their starting 11 stronger. We know that Eddie Howe likes to recruit players by watching them over a long period of time. Most of the players that he's signed over the course of his Newcastle tenure, 3.5, 4 years now, have been players that he's been aware of for a number of years, like Anthony Gordon. He was watching him when he was a youngster at Everton. The same with Tino Livramento. They watched Bruno Guimaraes for a long period of time as well. Sandro Tonali, that was a deal that took a couple of years to get over the line because they were tracking him, they were keeping in contact with his representatives, and eventually they managed to get that deal completed. And Jacob Ramsey's another one. He's a player that wanted to go to Newcastle, unlike some of the other players that had their head turned by Manchester United. And that's why he's landing in the North East tonight to undergo a medical after agreeing personal terms and the two clubs agreeing that fee. He wants to play for Eddie Howe. So straight away, when you look at the players they have signed, I actually think their starting 11 is stronger now. I know there's a big question mark over Alexander Isak, and we'll talk about that later on in the show. But I think there is a strong core group of players there that all want to develop and get better. I think they'll play in that philosophy that Eddie Howe is sort of so comfortable with. And I think this could be a really exciting season. I know the narrative is it's been a disastrous summer, but what you look at what they've done, I actually think they could be one of the teams to watch this season.
OK, but Asmir, what's it like for a squad when all these players you know have been asked to come to your club and they don't want to come? What do the players who are there think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the players usually tend to get on with it. I mean, they understand there's a business side, there's so many things they can't control. I mean, all of these transfer dealings are done between the hierarchy of football clubs and representatives. So I think as a squad, really, you try and block out that noise. You do hear some of it, it's inevitable these days. But I think you focus on the job in hand. And I think if you look at Newcastle's squad, they still have a top squad. They still have Alexander Isak, so he's still obviously part of that team. So they're still looking quite strong. And I think generally as a squad, you stay together and focus on the job in hand.
Quick line on Villa then, Mark. So looks like Jacob Ramsey's out of the way. Have they got a replacement?
Very possibly. We know that Aston Villa are one of those sides that have to be really careful with how much they spend this summer because of the UEFA FFP rules. And whilst I know this gets a little bit confusing, there are two sets of rules that Premier League clubs are working to. Those are PSR rules that are for Premier League sides, and the FFP rules are for those working in Europe and operating in European competitions, so Champions League, Europa Conference League. So some clubs, like Aston Villa, have to make sure they satisfy two sets of results. And Aston Villa this summer have to make sure they comply with the FFP UEFA rules, hence why they've had to sell one of their players, Jacob Ramsey. He was into the last 2 years of his contract. The replacement, Marco Asensio. Now, Aston Villa fans will know him because he was on loan from PSG last season. He came in on deadline day, scored 8 goals in all competitions, 3 in the Premier League. It was absolutely sensational. The fans absolutely loved him. 29 years old, really experienced. Our information is that Aston Villa are interested in another potential deal for Marco Asensio.
Is that a loan deal?
Well, the problem is he's into the last year of his contract. So PSG are going to be unwilling, shall we say, at this stage to just say, oh, yeah, go on loan for another season, unless there's a high loan fee attached. But they'd most likely prefer, we want a permanent solution here. You've got to take his wages and you've got to give us some money for the player. And that's where it might be a little bit of a problem for Aston Villa. But the fact that he is 29 and into the last year, it might just maybe suit them where they can say, well, this is what we can afford to give you. This is what we'd like to do with regards to this deal. But he's certainly one player they have their eye on to replace Jacob Ramsey. OK, so Ramsey to Newcastle. Is Yoane Wissa going to Newcastle? Well, Eddie Howe would certainly be hopeful that they can get a deal for Yoane Wissa, but this isn't a simple situation. It's been really a bit of a saga over the course of this summer. The player wants to go to Newcastle. He wants to play for Eddie Howe. He wants to experience Champions League football. And he's going into the last year, although the club do have an additional year option on his contract. So he's got essentially 2 years left on his Brentford contract. And there has been that Newcastle offer that's been rejected. And as far as the club are concerned, they don't want to sell Yoane Wissa. They want to keep him. They don't want to completely decimate that team whilst they've got so many other changes. Thomas Frank, the backroom team, they want to try and keep the core of that squad together, of which Yoane Wissa was a huge part of their success last season. So it remains to be seen as to what happens. He is a part of a domino effect because we know that Brentford are in the market to try and sign Bournemouth's Dango Ouattara as well, and that has a knock-on effect. But it'd be interesting to see how this one develops. We know that there has been interest, and Keith Andrews was actually talking today in his pre-match press conference about this situation. Here's what he had to say on Yoane Wissa.
As a head coach, I want Yoane in the building. I want him to be part of the first-team team, first-team squad. I see that. moving forward. But obviously, and I keep saying this, I'm very understanding of his situation. But for Johan on Sunday, he won't be involved.
We've seen this sort of situation before, Asmir. How difficult is it for everyone involved when a player wants to go somewhere else and the club doesn't want him to go?
It's a very difficult situation. Obviously, the business side is where it really takes over in instances like this, because Brentford want to maximise the value. The player wants to maximise his earnings, his career. He wants to go play at the highest level. So everyone's looking at their best interests. And obviously, finding a deal in these situations can be difficult. I can understand why he wants to go to Newcastle. It's Champions League football. He's a great fit as well, because he's an ideal replacement for Callum Wilson, who's left Newcastle. And he's a very dynamic player, runs a lot, covers a lot of distance, very aggressive, knows where the goal is as well. So he's obviously a finisher. So ticks a lot of boxes for Newcastle, and I can see why they want him.
OK, let's talk Liverpool now. Mark, they're after a couple of centre-backs. Giovani Leone, the youngster. Where are they with this one?
Yeah, 18-year-old centre-back at Parma. On Wednesday evening, the two clubs agreed a deal worth £26 million. The player is currently in the UK at the moment. I think one of the key things as well was the player wanted to join the Premier League champions. Who wouldn't, with the squad they've got at their disposal at the moment? He is going to be a part of the first team squad. Whilst he's only 18 years old, he is very much going to be a part of that team and that squad. One for the future without question. How much game time he'll get this season, but he's certainly in the thinking there of what Arne Slot wants to do. So yeah, that's the latest with Giovanni Leone. We're just waiting to see whether Liverpool like to maybe try and go back into the market and sign another possible centre-back.
Well, let's talk about the other centre-back then. Mark Guehi. What about his situation, Asmir? Because what's he got, Mark? 1 year left on his contract at Palace?
1 year left on his Palace contract.
So what does he do? Does he go to the champions? Does he stay with Palace? Given that if he goes to Liverpool, he might not play all the time.
Again, I think if the option is to go to Liverpool is there, the appeal of going to the champions and one of the biggest clubs in the world is incredibly difficult to pass down. And I know there's been talks of him moving on before. I think it's been an absolutely incredible servant to Crystal Palace. He's won him now 2 trophies. He's done incredible things there. So it seems like the natural progression for him in his career to go test himself at the elite level. So going into your last year of your deal, you would love more security. I'm sure in his life, he would like maybe a longer-term contract, which Liverpool will provide him with that. So, and Crystal Palace probably need to sell and cash in. They're not a club, I think, or most clubs aren't in positions to be able to let players go on a free. So it seems like there is a deal to be done. And if Liverpool do get him, then look out.
Does it get done, Mark?
Asmir's made a really important point. Mark Guehi wants to play, needs to play. You don't go from being a Crystal Palace captain, being the first name on the team sheet week in, week out, to being on the bench, even though it's a much bigger club and an opportunity to win silverware. But in 12 months' time, he would have been involved in the World Cup, and that's what he wants. So to be on the plane with Thomas Tuchel's squad and be a first name on the England team sheet, you have to have played. You have to have minutes under your belt. He goes to Liverpool, there may be a question mark. Does he get in ahead of Ibrahima Konate and Virgil van Dijk? Is he going to get the minutes? Is he going to play? And that will be his thought process ahead of making this move. The Crystal Palace stance is, we don't want to sell our captain on the cheap. We know that Newcastle tried to sign Mark Guehi last summer. They got to around £65 million. Even that offer was rejected. It got close to what Parish wanted, but it wasn't close enough. We understand, again, the fee to get Mark Guehi is substantial this summer. And will Liverpool pay it in its current guise? Probably not. Will there be a softening from Crystal Palace? Possibly. But my information is Steve Parish doesn't want to sell 2 key players this summer. Mark Guehi being one, the other one, Eberechi Eze. And you have to look at that and say, whose need is more desperate? Spurs to get Eze in or Liverpool's to get Guehi in? And I think that might answer the question.
Yeah, OK. Well, we know that Liverpool want Guehi. We also know at the other end of the pitch, they have been linked with Alexander Isak. And Arne Slot told us today he wants at least one more forward.
It's clear that with Darwin gone and Luis Diaz gone, and even last season we had 5 or 6 options, I think. Again, Diogo, I need to mention him as well. So yeah, that we need to have one more attacker, at least.
Yeah, and we know who that might be. Asmir, I know you know Eddie Howe really well. How do you think he is going to handle this situation?
Well, it's a very difficult situation. I think it's a situation probably that's a little bit above him in terms of the clubs and the valuations on players and contracts and who's been promised what. So there can be very difficult situations and positions a manager can find themselves in because it's not for them to control all of these things. He will want to keep Alexander Isak, who wouldn't. You know, I think arguably the best striker in the Premier League. And he's going to communicate with him. He's going to look after him as well as he can. He also has to protect the squad. Obviously, he needs players who are all in, who are committed to the cause. not players who may be looking over their shoulders and looking for moves and maybe not being into their situation 100%. So it's a very, very difficult situation. But he's obviously very experienced now. How he's dealt with these things before, and I'm sure he's going to deal with it to the best of his abilities.
What do you think? 7:01 on September the 1st. Is he a Newcastle player or a Liverpool player?
I think he's a Newcastle player. I do feel like I think we talked about it a little bit off air. I think because of all these other strikers going somewhere else, I don't think Newcastle have a replacement. And I think for them to go into such a big season, as we mentioned earlier, 4 competitions, Champions League nights at St. James's Park, to not have their number 9, I feel like it's going to be difficult for them to accept any sort of bid. I know Liverpool will be desperate for him, but I feel like he stays unless they find a replacement.
Hello again. We've got a special transfer show this evening. Asmir Begovic is here with us. So is Mark McCallum. Let's not leave Mark out. Now, if you want to ask Asmir a question, get in touch on X at Sky Sports News and use the hashtag AskAsmir. We'll get to those before 8. Loads have come in already. Keep them coming and we'll ask Asmir as many as we can. And of course, it's the perfect evening to have him with us in the studio as the future of some of the world's greatest and most high-profile goalkeepers are in the balance. So, Mark, let's talk Gianluigi Donnarumma. What's the latest on him?
Yeah, this is fascinating. Someone that's won 10 major pieces of silverware as well as a Champions League whilst at PSG. And Luis Enrique has made it quite clear that one of his new signings, a goalkeeper, Lucas Chevalier, is actually going to be the number 1 at PSG, despite all of the successes that Donnarumma has had in the French capital. He has just 1 year left on his current PSG contract, which maybe is why they've decided to go down a different route. All parties are currently working on a potential exit from the European champions. 26 years old, he won the Euros with Italy in 2020. This is surely a player that will be on the radar of so many clubs. People are saying he's ready-made for the Premier League and he would fit perfectly in a number of sides that are currently in the market for a goalkeeper. But where will his destination be? We'll have to wait and see, but it's clear it won't be at PSG this season.
Asmir, are you surprised a player of that quality is available?
Not only surprised, I'm shocked by the developments of this. I really can't believe a goalkeeper of his quality and what he's also done on the pitch, not just his general quality, but what he's achieved and how he's played, the success PSG have had. For him to be available in the prime, going into the prime of his career is absolutely fascinating to me. And I don't know what the breakdown of relationship is. Seems like he's available. And I think if you're any club in the Premier League or if that's the destination of his choice, then you've got to try and make that happen.
Right, you say that, but all I'm hearing is can't play with his feet, doesn't come for crosses. So is he suited to the Premier League?
He's very much suited with the Premier League. I had the pleasure of working with him. We worked together at AC Milan, and I've seen one in terms of his professional attitude, his work ethic, his talent, how good he is, and all those attributes of his game are absolutely top class. So for him, he can definitely adapt to the Premier League. I think it's a challenge for anyone, so it might be a little adaptation period. High balls, absolute shot stopping, incredible aggressivity, his aggressiveness off the line. His speed off the line is incredible. Of course, if you're looking at distribution, and a lot of people are comparing him to Ederson, let's be clear, Ederson is the best in the world. So I think we all fall a little bit underneath him if you're being compared to Ederson, but definitely more than capable of playing with his feet and making the right contributions.
Well, Asmir's just mentioned Ederson, so let's talk Manchester City. They've been linked with Donnarumma. Is their goalkeeping situation far too complicated for that to happen?
It certainly feels like this is quite a complicated scenario at the moment as far as Manchester City are concerned. They have a number of top-class goalkeepers at the football club, but only one of them can play week in, week out. And that's where the problem lies for Pep Guardiola. Obviously, Ederson is a player who's been linked with a number of clubs over the course of this summer. The Saudi Arabian Pro League sides are interested. There's been clubs in Turkey that are also looking to try and do a potential deal. And there has been suggestions that Ederson is ready to look at the next challenge. Manchester City are quite clear. He's our number 1. And he's not going to go anywhere unless they are totally comfortable with any potential price or any potential deal. We know that they've also signed James Trafford from Burnley as well. I'm surprised at that one because James Trafford was linked to Newcastle and possibly, I don't know what Eddie Howe's thinking was, but they wouldn't have been signing James Trafford to sit him on the bench. He would have potentially been going in there as a number 1. He's now looking likely to be the number 2 at Manchester City, so his game time is going to be maybe limited. But if they do move Ederson on for the right price, James Trafford suddenly shuffles into that hot seat. But maybe is that where Manchester City then say, Gianluigi Donnarumma, actually, he's the type of player we need, because we want to win the Champions League and we want to go and win the Premier League, and we're going to need the best players in every possible position. One to keep an eye on. It certainly feels like there's a little bit of a merry-go-round at Manchester City at the moment with regards to goalkeepers.
Could you see Donnarumma at City, given how Pep plays out from the back? And as we said, he's not the best with the ball at his feet.
Yeah, I can definitely see him there. Like I said, he's more than capable of playing with his feet. And, like I said, being that goalkeeper for Manchester City, I think if you look at what Gigi's done, and I think this is a transfer or something that's come about the situation that probably hasn't been in the works for very long. So it seems very reactive on these teams. And I think if this sort of player, obviously goalkeeper in this instance, becomes available and he can upgrade your team, you have to look into doing it. And I think, for me, he's one of the top 3 goalkeepers in the world. And if you can bring him in, whether it's Man City, Man United, Chelsea, whoever it may be, then I think you have to try and do so.
You called him Gigi. See, that's what you get from an ex-teammate.
That's right.
Do you have his number on your
I do indeed, yeah.
So we could call him during the break.
Yeah, we'll get... we'll sort it out.
We could do that.
If you're James Trafford, what do you think at the moment?
Well, you're hoping probably Donnarumma doesn't arrive at the football club, but I think James Trafford has been brought in as a bit of a longer-term project. You know, he's had a fantastic season at Burnley, played really well in the Championship. I think to take over immediately as the number 1 at Man City is a very big ask. So I think he's come in, at a really good age, maybe the long-term Man City number 1, even with Ederson in the building. Don't forget Ortega is still there as well.
Exactly. And he's a good goalkeeper.
He's a very good goalkeeper. So I think James Trafford kind of knows his role. That one of these guys will probably play ahead of him, and then I think over time he'll be the one that takes over.
Okay, let's talk Manchester United, Mark. Goalkeeping is something that's been spoken about there as well. Have they sorted their situation or not?
Goalkeepers is a position that Manchester United have been looking at this summer, but their focus was on 2 10s and a striker. Ruben Amorim completely wanted to revolutionise that front 3 at Manchester United. He wants to play with a different style to what historically they've done, and they've gone out and got the players to do that. Their main focus now is to try and generate some money and sell some players from those players that are not going to be involved directly in the squad. And we spoke about it at 5 o'clock. There's a number of players like Anthony, Tyrell Malacia, Rasmus Højlund, that are all going to be heading to the Manchester United Old Trafford exit door. However, there is still this big question mark about Andre Onana and whether or not they need to go and sign a goalkeeper to potentially challenge him or potentially replace him. He's been injured over the course of pre-season, so not played a great deal, which is another issue. And, of course, Manchester United have to be conscious about what they spend financially with regards to PSR as well. So they're focused very much on generating some income to enable them maybe then to go and look at other positions they'd like to strengthen.
Asmir, Andre Onana gets a lot of stick, gets criticised a lot. Do United this season improve if he's still in their goal?
No, I think so. I think because, one, he's going to be more familiar with Ruben Amorim's system and the way he wants him to play. I think another year, Man United is getting used to the situation. But I think if we're talking about Donnarumma in this case and being able to bring him in, I think it's an upgrade. And, these things don't come up every day. So maybe it's an opportunity they feel like it's too good to pass up. But I think Andre Onana, once he gets back fit, it's a shame when you miss pre-season. I think with the new manager having a full pre-season, I think it can be a very, very important thing. So for him to miss pre-season is probably very, very unlucky. But again, I think if you can bring a caliber of Donnarumma into your building, then I think it's something Man United need to look into.
Hello again. Welcome back to the Transfer Show. Now, Asmir Begovic is our special guest this evening. He'll be back with us in about 10 minutes. So if you want to ask him a question, do get in touch. Do it on X at Sky Sports News and use the hashtag AskAsmir. We'll get to them before 8 o'clock. Keep sending them in. There's loads already. Right. There are just over 2 weeks to go in the window. Not everybody is happy with the business that is being done. Let's start with Fulham, who've so far made just the one signing this summer. Marco Silva, not impressed.
Myself as a manager, all the managers, they want always more and they want to improve squads. But there are some positions that is not just that you want to improve. We need numbers, we need depth, and it's not the ideal scenario. I will not hide to you. It's something that you use the word that was quiet. I have to say that you have been too passive. And if you ask me if I expected, of course not. Too passive, unexpected, to be honest, even if I know that Fulham has a historic that normal some players they come out a bit more late or not. I don't go in that direction. I know what we want and the plan was there. Unfortunately for us until now, we don't have let's hope until the end of the market, because right now it doesn't make sense for us to look for this game or even to Man United game, because it's everything very late. Let's hope until the end of the window we can reinforce in the positions that we need.
So are you confident that there will be new additions before the transfer window closes?
we have to. I think we don't have other solution. Sorry, I'm not confident. Probably we already missed some targets that we had. It's part of the business. It's part of the market. We missed some players that they were on the paper for us. If you are going to ask me if I'm optimistic or if I'm confident that we are going to sign, I think we don't have other solution.
Well, Mark, that's a pretty clear message to the owners. Has he got a point, though?
Yeah, and we started the show at 5 o'clock with a number of unhappy managers because they're getting frustrated at the window and not being able to get deals over the line. Antonio Iraola's the same. David Moyes has been frustrated in the window. And Fulham are one of those sides that have really not had any luck whatsoever. And there are always a number of factors as to why maybe it's not right. The players are falling away. They can't get the money on the table in the right fashion to get these players away. And this is a window where we're seeing exuberant, high prices, which makes it a real challenge for a number of clubs that are trying to be sustainable and sensible, but they're finding themselves having to pay 40 or 50 million pounds just to get one player through the door. When you've not got, Champions League football that generates huge income, it makes it much more difficult. One player that they are interested in and they're willing to pay a sizable fee for is the Shakhtar Donetsk winner, Kevin. He only joined Shakhtar 18 months ago for 15 million euros. You'd imagine they're not going to want to sell a player for any less than double, triple what they've already paid for him. He's only at the start of his Donetsk journey. So that's one that they're very much interested in. He's a winger, and we know there's been a lot of talk about Rodrigo Muniz as well, who's obviously a key player into the last year of his contract. Atalanta have made a 40 million euro offer for him. At the moment, that's been rejected by Fulham. They don't really want to sell a player without having a replacement through the door. But the fact that they're getting frustrated with players they're trying to sign, and then there's interest in some of their players, it's just all adding to the mix of this being a really difficult window for Marco Silva.
So what are Silva's priorities? Who does he want to bring in?
The key players that they want to add to the squad is strength in depth and quality to that first team. So strikers, wingers and midfielders are key. The fact that they've signed Tom Cairney on another contract is a good thing because he knows the club, he understands the philosophy of Marco Silva's team and what they want. And of course, Kenny Tete as well is another player they've been able to keep a hold of when he was linked with possible other Premier League sides. So I think there is some positivity in there, despite looking at the current standings of what clubs near the bottom of the Premier League have spent, and obviously their spending, Fulham's, is really, really small considering some of the fees that have been bandied around. So I'd expect that to change over the course of the next few weeks, and Marco Silva will be hoping it definitely does change.
OK, well, Bournemouth seem to have sold player after player, and there could be more. Here's Andoni Iraola.
I think still 2 weeks in this market. Probably we are not where we wanted to be, but it's normal because it has been a summer of a lot of changes and we will need to have a little bit of patience until the market ends. And it's a summer with I think, some important movements, some players leaving, new players coming. We will need to adjust quickly as we can.
We're not where we want to be, he just said. So what's he referring to?
I think the frustration for Andoni Iraola is he's seen 4 of the back 5, including the goalkeeper, depart the club. However, they have actually replaced all but one of those players. So, Milos Kerkez went and they brought in Adrian Traffeur. They lost Kepa, replaced him with Petrovic from Chelsea. They lost Ilya Zabani to PSG, and he's been replaced as well with Bofodo Diakite, one of the best defenders in Ligue 1 last season. The only player they haven't replaced is Dean Howson, but they are looking for a centre-back. I think there's a lot of noise as well surrounding other players. One player who we know is definitely leaving the Vitality Stadium, Luis Sinisterra. He's going to Cruzeiro in Brazil on loan. That's an initial loan at this stage. We're not sure on the detail. That's still being discussed between the two clubs, whether it becomes an option or on obligation. So he's one player they're not going to have. There's a noise around Dango Ouattara as well, and that link with Brentford, which links to Johan Wissa. So that's the situation. But we do know that Bournemouth are in talks with Bayer Leverkusen over a deal for the winger Amin Adli and the Midtjylland winger Dario Osorio. So there are players that are potentially heading in, but they are losing a number of players as well. The one thing about Bournemouth is they've been really, really good at trimming costs and shaving money off the wage bill. Neto's gone back to Brazil. Mark Travers went to Everton. So there is a number of players where they've been able to say, right, you're not key first-team players whilst we like and respect you. Let's move you on and save that money. So they have done some really good, sensible business. It's probably just a little bit frustrating for Andoni because he just wants players through the door.
Sure. Let's talk Man United, who want players out of the door. Any progress on the 5 they want to get rid of?
No significant progress. We know that there's a lot of interest in Jadon Sancho. There has been an offer lodged to Manchester United with regards to him from Roma. We understand that offer to be £20 million. Manchester United currently considering he has just 1 year left on his current contract. Nothing for Anthony, nothing for Tyrell Malacia. The information on Rasmus Højlund, we know that AC Milan are interested in signing him and Borussia Dortmund as well. His stance a couple of weeks ago was, I want to stay at Old Trafford and fight for my place. However, that's changed. He would be open to going to AC Milan. So that's basically opened the doors for them. Right, do a deal with Manchester United and I'm willing to come to you.
Right, OK. Right, we're going to take a break. We're going to get Asmir Begovic back with us. And we're going to look at the winners and losers of the window so far. Now, we're into the last part of the transfer show. We asked you to get in touch, ask Asmir any question you wanted. We've got absolutely bundles of them, so let's get to it. Asmir, right, I'm going to start with Michael Neen, who's clearly an Everton fan. He says, with Everton's signings, including Jack Grealish on loan, where do you see Everton finishing this season?
Well, I think hopefully it's a year of progression for Everton. I think we had a really strong second half of the season last year. That stabilised the club. Obviously, David Moore's going back in. He was a legend there. Really good feel about the club, the new stadium. So hopefully, top half finish will be really good.
You're going to like this question. This is from Josh Barber, who says, how does it feel to score from inside your own box?
Yeah, terrible. No, that was a pretty cool feeling. Yeah.
pretty cool.
Pretty cool. Do you know what? Actually, at the time, my reaction was very subdued. I didn't really know what to do with myself, but I think as time goes on, you realise how special it was. So, yeah,
I think
really cool.
you were only the 5th goalkeeper at that time to have done that.
Yeah. So
is it still the longest ever goal?
I think someone's overtaken my record, but we don't talk about that.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. A Chelsea fan's got in touch. Who was the best player at Chelsea during your time there?
I mean, a couple of great years, some amazing players, but I think the one, a lot of guys would agree, the one that stands out, the match winner, is Eden Hazard. So.
Oh, really?
He was a special player, just a match winner when he's on form, and I think just a player fans love to watch. And he was a good player to have on our team.
OK, now I'm just the messenger on this particular question. Damien Dent says, who are your 3 to go down from the Premier League?
Oof, ouch.
That's always a tough one to answer. Shall we go, I think Burnley, struggle. Wolves, maybe Brentford?
Ooh, come on, tell us why.
Just to be a little bit more interesting. You don't want the 3 that have gone up to go down. I think all competitive. It's going to be a super competitive Premier League this year. I think the teams coming up have really invested. Sunderland's a great club. You just watch, love watching games at the Stadium of Light. Leeds have invested a lot. So, yeah, just to change it up a little bit.
All that goodwill that he had in the first 2 parts gone straight away. All right, my turn now. Lennon Vesey has got in touch. What has been your career highlight?
Club highlight has been winning the Premier League with Chelsea. That was incredible, a great experience. And then for the national team playing in the 2014 World Cup.
Yeah.
Our first major tournament. That was a pretty cool experience.
Tell us about that. What was that like?
Really difficult to describe because obviously, country has been through a lot of turmoil, a lot of trouble. And for us to kind of unite that country in a really good way with such a successful story, players, all of us who've maybe grown up outside the country, coming together for one common goal and being able to achieve that. And for that World Cup to be in Brazil, first game against Argentina, against Lionel Messi, at the Maracanã in Rio de Janeiro was pretty special. Are you
all of you guys like national heroes back in?
Hopefully, yeah. I'd like to think so. I mean, it was our golden generation, as they called it. Some fantastic players, so much talent. When we came together, we were a pretty decent side. And
what was it like playing against Messi?
Yeah, that was challenging. I mean, he's incredible, and he scored the winner that day. So yeah, he's a good player.
At least you can say you picked the ball out the back of the net from a Messi shot.
Yeah.
That's
I can live with that.
That's fine. Dijon Tanner has got in touch and said, who is the best all-time goalkeeper in the Premier League?
Oh, good one.
That's a tough one. I'm going to go with Petr
Cech. Yeah.
Tell us why.
I think just his all-around game, his consistency, obviously for all the trophies he's won. I mean, I always kind of like to play similar to him in a way. I know we're a similar profile, so it's, fitted my game. I learned a lot from him. Obviously, we're friends as well, so I've got to give him a shout-out.
I'll tell you what, on Petr Cech, I came to your golf day.
Yeah.
Asmir does a golf day every year to raise money for charity. He invited me along one time, Sky Sports News TV cameras, and Petr Cech was there, and I asked him for an interview, and he turned me down.
Oh,
wow. No. He's sitting there gutted now. Have you got a goalkeeping hero?
Oliver Kahn. Yeah. So I grew up in Germany. Bayern Munich was my favorite team growing up, and I think he was the best goalkeeper sort of in the late 90s, early 2000s in the world. Genuinely think that, and so supporting the best player on maybe my favorite team seemed like the most logical thing to do.
Okay. Ryan Briscoe's got in touch. He says, which teams are you most looking forward to facing in the Championship this season?
Yeah, I think a really competitive Championship this year again. I mean, some big teams in there. I guess our local derby would be against Derby County, so that'll be one, team nearby. Looking forward to that one, but yeah, just looking forward to hopefully having a really good season and achieving our end goal.
You've had an outstanding career. You've played for so many sides in so many countries at different levels. Is there one where you look back so fondly on? Is there a club where you just felt a connection to the fan base, where you just really enjoyed your time there and had success?
I've been really lucky, Mark, honestly, because I've had a great career and been very fortunate to play for some amazing clubs and really had good experiences everywhere. From the day I signed at Pompey to my loan spells at all the lower league clubs back then that were all part of my journey. 5.5 amazing years at Stoke, I think, where we achieved some incredible things, overachieved at times, without a doubt. But great togetherness, great club, great fan base, going to the top with Chelsea and then Milan. Milan was special.
I was going to say Milan.
Yeah, that one sticks out, definitely sticks out. Bournemouth, Everton, obviously QPR, and now Leicester. So, yeah, it's tough to really single one out, but had some great times with many clubs now. Great
career. Right, we're going to test you this window so far. Who's the best signing this summer so far, do you think?
I'm going to give Sunderland a little bit of love. To get a player like Granit Xhaka through the door is a pretty big achievement, so I'm going to go with him.
And you got them to stay up, you said, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm going to give him a chance.
Who's the best value signing so far this summer?
I think Jack Grealish could be the best value, really could be. I think if you're getting a player who was, £100 million at one point on loan in a World Cup year where he wants to play, needs to prove himself, wants to be on that plane heading over to North America, I think he could be an unbelievably, big signing.
Are you surprised it didn't really work out for him at City?
Things happen, times change, people, clubs change direction. I don't think maybe it's anyone's fault per se, or in particular. Times change. I've been there in the past where clubs just go in different directions, move the goalposts, whatever the situation may be. So it's one of those things, but he seems really happy with the move, just his reactions, seems motivated. And I think if you get a motivated Jack Grealish with the talent that he has, he could be a really big difference for that Everton side.
Which team has improved the most over the course of this transfer summer so far?
I really like Chelsea's window. I have to say, I know they've got a lot of momentum on their side. I think what they've been building with Enzo Maresca over the last year, winning the Conference League, the Club World Cup, the signings they've had. If you look at Esteban, was a super talented youngster this summer. Gittins coming in. If they get Xavi Simons, Garnacho, João Pedro leading the front line. Still maybe needing a centre-half with Levi Colwill's injury, but I really like Chelsea's window.
It's always like me to end on a downer. We've only got 20 or so seconds. Which teams had the worst window?
Oh, God.
Putting you on the spot, you're earning your money.
I wouldn't say worst window. I think there's some few teams we've mentioned today. I think Bournemouth, Brentford, Fulham, Wolves. There's teams probably still got a lot of work to do, trying to get their right value and the right players in between now and the end of the window.
Asmir, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you in the studio. Come back, because we'd love that.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for all your questions as well. Mark, thanks to you. That was the transfer show for today. When we come back on Sky Sports News after the break, we're going to talk more transfers. We're going to talk Jacob Ramsey going to Newcastle. We'll see you.